So again, we're going to start lying down, but to ward off any chances of you falling asleep, then we will go to a seated position. So you want to make sure that you have comfortable position, both lying down and seated, and then we'll finish lying down. So the idea in the lying down is that we generally can find our breath and relate to our breath better lying down because we're more comfortable. Thus, that's why we go to sleep that way. But also that it's an opportunity to expel energy. So typically at night, for most of the time, if I meditate at night, I do tend to do a meditation lying down because I'm trying to get rid of everything from the day. You know, I don't want to go to bed with it. So this is just my approach. And like I said, though, remember that traditionally there was no such thing as lying down in meditation. It was always a seated practice. But for our sake in this breathing meditation, we're going to start in this position. So make sure you're comfortable. The first thing I just want you to notice is how you're breathing. And is it through your nose or your mouth? One of the simplest things we do is note, are you breathing through your nose or your mouth? And we're not going to change anything yet. We're just doing a breath inquiry. See if you can notice a difference in temperature of the breath coming in and the breath going out. Without changing anything, just noticing. And so the air enters either the mouth or the nose. But now go wherever into your body your conscious awareness may take you, and see if you can find a place where it feels like your breath starts. Where does it initiate? Where does the movement of the breath initiate other than feeling the air itself on the nose or the mouth? We're not changing it. We're just noticing our natural, spontaneous breath. And add on to that, wherever it starts, where does it continue to flow? So feeling your skin stretch is a sign that the inhalation is coming into that area. As feeling your skin relax and come back in on the exhalation. You might feel bones move or muscles move. With your back on the ground, you might feel a change in the way that your back body is touching the surface of the earth. And where is that? So in your most natural organic breath, notice what's moving, what's not moving. So you are already doing a breath-centered meditation. That's the first thing I want to point out. That's as simple as it can be. And in this time that I've been speaking to you, perhaps your mind went to, oh, I should have done the dishes before this, or maybe I should have put my pajamas on tonight. But the idea is that we come back to the breath. Every time those thoughts pop into our head, we come back into the breath because the breath is the now. It's this moment. And even more wonderfully, it's embodying us. We're coming back not only to this moment, but to this moment within ourselves. Just by feeling your breath. And when we come back, because our minds will go other places, we always come back with loving kindness. Invite your mind back into your breath. Throughout this practice tonight, it's about loving kindness. Never scolding or judging. So now that we know the simplest thing we can do, which is just watching our natural spontaneous breath, go back up into your face and just see if it's comfortable for you to breathe in your nose and out your mouth, or if it's there, in and out of your nose. And I didn't ask where everybody is in their breathing experiences. So if in any way at any point tonight your breath tends to get more rigid, or you feel anxious or uncomfortable, or you find out that you can't complete an inhale or an exhale, go back to your natural spontaneous breath. So if breathing in and out of your nose causes any sort of hardship, try just breathing in the nose and out the mouth. And you're still just sensing the temperature of the air. Can you feel the coolness as it comes in and the warmth as it goes out? So I like to think of my breath like a character in a book. And you're going to build this character. You're going to give it a personality. What's the temperature of this character? And then I'm going to have you just gently place, so you had found where your breath was originating naturally. But now we're just going to gentrify that slightly. I'm going to have you place your hands on your belly so that the tips of your middle fingers slightly touch. But if that doesn't work with your, if your elbows are off the ground and your arms are uncomfortable, then just let them slide apart a little bit. So fingers should be right around the navel center, the middle fingers. And just relax your elbows. So think of your navel center as the center of your breath right now. And just notice what's happening naturally as you breathe in and breathe out, if you can relocate your breath into this space of abdomen. Can you sense a rising up as the air comes in your nose and emptying as the air comes out of your nose or mouth? There's a few things that are important in that checking the breath. And these are life skills as well as meditation skills. When we are in a stress pattern in our body, we typically would not breathe to the belly, first of all. And secondly, we may find ourselves expanding the abdomen as we breathe out and emptying the abdomen as we breathe in. It's called reverse breathing. But what I'm doing right now is setting you up to find the most relaxing way to breathe. So if you're going to bed and you're doing a meditation lying down and you want to relax, we breathe to the belly. We focus on feeling the inhalation rise and the exhalation fall. The filling and the emptying. And say that to yourself. I fill, I empty. I breathe in, I breathe out. The simplest thing you can tell yourself to stay within this rhythmic flow. And then in addition to this, when we use the breath for meditation, and the goal is to relax, to purge and get rid of, what we might begin to do, if it's comfortable, is make the exhalation slightly longer and slower than the inhalation. Just take a moment to let that exhalation draw out and complete itself without force. So we're not grabbing into the abdominal muscles. It's a soft belly coming back in towards the spine. And there's even a point at the bottom of the exhalation, right before it becomes the inhalation, that there's a peaceful pause. And take a moment to notice that peaceful pause. And from that peaceful pause at the bottom of the exhalation, the body will naturally float itself back into the next inhale. We don't have to tell it to. Our nervous system is hardwired to do this for us. There's no force, no strain. We're just slightly lengthening the exhalation and noticing that peaceful pause at the bottom of the exhale. I'm going to be quiet and leave you in this space for just a few minutes. Remember that when your mind wanders off, offer yourself grace. And there's so many ways you can come back. It might be feeling the abdomen move, feeling the temperature of the breath on your nose and or your mouth, saying very simple mantras to yourself like I breathe in, I breathe out. Finding that space of grace at the end of the exhalation. Any of these tools, if you want to add your own affirmation as you're breathing in and out, you can of course do that. I breathe in and I notice. I breathe out and I relax. Or however you want to work it. This is the way we can use the breath in meditation, particularly when we're reclining, to relax, release, purge. And take a moment to notice how you feel. And you may perhaps be getting slightly sleepy. That's lending itself to relaxation. But watching that fine line between staying awake and alert and being present in your breath and being available to watch yourself relax. Normally, when we go to sleep, we don't have that intention of watching our own body relax. But more important than what we do is noticing how you feel. And I say that because this may not be for everyone. Again, if it causes any sort of unease or anxiety, then it's not the way that we would relax with the breath. So I just say that as an out, understanding that everybody's needs are different when they work with the breath. So how do you feel right now? Breathing to your belly, noticing the peaceful pause, and always remembering that you have the option to return to your natural breath at any time. Does it feel like you're a step closer to wanting to put your pajamas on and go to sleep? Do your muscles feel more relaxed? Can you sense the weight of your bones? Perhaps you can even feel that your heart is slowing down, which it does. The heart actually slows down on our exhalation, just slightly. All right. So before we get up, we're going to just take a moment to experience the breath now, not as a tool to purge and relax, but getting into a seated meditation often is an opportunity to use the breath more in a way that we create energy, and we use the breath to create a force of what we call in yoga prana in our bodies to vitalize. So we're actually directing the breath versus dispersing the breath. You have been dispersing in this practice, and now we'll direct. But we'll do it first lying down just to get the feel. So if you'd like to slide your hands so that the heels of your hands are gently resting on your rib cage, the outer ribs, so that your elbows will remain on the floor and your arms are still relaxed. Think of this area at the bottoms of the lungs and see how it feels to breathe into the space underneath your hands. Think of your rib cage, the circumference of your rib cage, all 360 degrees, even in the back. Just see if you can take a few breaths and feel your ribs gently draw apart from one another. Breathing in and coming back towards one another as you breathe out. You might feel more movement in the front. You might feel more movement in one side than the other. And when we notice these things, it's not because there's any judgment attached to it. It's because that is the mindfulness. That is what we gain in doing these practices. Is the mindfulness, the acknowledgement. You've already won, regardless of what the results are. It's always about the journey and not the end results. And feel the beautiful way that your ribs slide apart and back together. Might feel your hands moving. Take just a few more rounds of breath into these lower lobes of the lungs. You might even feel your back body again moving with the ground underneath it. A little bit of compression of the ribs into the ground as you breathe in, and the way the ribs gently lift away from the ground as you breathe out. Then we're going to do another hand position. So I'm going to ask you to gently slide your hands so they're right about in the middle of your chest. So halfway between the navel center and the throat. And then same thing, you can let your elbows rest and just begin to breathe in a way that you can feel the centers of your lungs moving, or the area underneath your hands. You might think of the space underneath your armpits and the sides of the body, your shoulder blades and your back body. These are just landmarks for you. We use our hands as a tool for our awareness in the front. Just becoming aware of our ability to breathe into this area without any force or strain. Sometimes the word breath control is used when people talk about pranayama, which is the yogic practice of breathing mindfully. And I much prefer the term to gentrify the breath than to control it. It's a graceful practice of kindness, of self-love. And particularly right now, as you breathe into the space in and around your heart. And we have one last hand position. So I'm going to have you slide your hands up, and here your elbows might slightly come off the floor, but we won't do it for very long. Just fan your fingers over your collarbones. So feel your collarbones, let your hands rest. So this is the upper lobes of your lungs. And see if you can direct the breath more into this space. You can feel your collarbones. You can also think of breathing into the base of the throat, like you're sipping your breath into your throat. The tops of the shoulders and the backside. Again, the whole circumference of your body, 360 degrees around in this upper area of shoulders, chest, back. And then we're going to put this whole thing together. So this is sometimes called the full breath or the three-part breath. So you can keep your upper left hand on your collarbones if you'd like, or maybe slide it more to the center where your elbow is resting. But please place your right hand back down by the navel center. So we've got an upper and lower landmark of our arms. Let your elbows relax. And now see if you can allow your breath to flow upward from somewhere in the abdomen all the way up under the collarbones as you breathe in. And when you go to release, I'm going to leave it up to you. You can empty from top to bottom or bottom to top. And if you're not sure, try both. Tonight is an opportunity for you to try things on. I say that meditation is a lot like dating. We want to date lots of different tools initially, and then eventually we marry one or two that work best for us. For right now, tonight, you're dating. So play with the idea of breathing up and back down, or up and send it out from bottom to top. And as you do this, I want you to note how you feel. Is there a change in your felt sense? Has anything changed in how you feel as a result of doing this full diaphragmatic breath? And you may notice things like, has the ratio between your inhale and your exhale changed in any way? Are they the same? Is one longer or shorter? We're not trying to manipulate that in any way. We're just noticing when we go into our full three-part breath. And then allow your hands to just come by your sides if you'd like. And do about 5 more rounds of this full three-part breath. And use your mind as the tool to create the character of the breath now. There's so much more that you might be able to add to that personality. What would you add? You can go back to the simplicity of feeling the temperature of the breath in the nose and the mouth. But now you might add that feeling of the breath passing through the throat as if you're sipping it. The movement of the ribs. The sense of your abdomen softening as you breathe out. The back body and its connection with the ground underneath it. after you finish this last round, we're going to get ready to come up to a seated position. But before we do, please feel free to take any big stretches. If you do my somatic yoga, you know, you can do a full body yawn or hug your knees in, roll to your side first and pause before you find your comfortable seated position. And I'm also going to add, as I said, I did not turn your volume or I did not mute anybody. Before we switch gears, if anybody has any questions or comments, the comments can always be helpful for the group. You know, we'll keep it short, but if you have any comments or questions or to share your experience, please feel free to. We'll take just about 5 minutes to do that. And if it's not there, that's okay. We'll go right into the next practice.
I'm glad we're working on our breath. I started meditating 10 minutes a day, and it was easier for me instead of all the different, everyone says, oh, breathe this way or breathe that way. You know, when you read about it, it was easier just to notice my breath rather than try and put any structure in.
Good. Thank you for, go ahead.
Yes. I do like the square breath that you taught one time.
Okay.
That helps too.
Okay. Thank you for sharing that. And that's really important because, like I said, that there's no right way for everybody to do pranayama, and particularly in meditation. But what I did want you to get somewhat of a feel for is, again, that if we choose to do a breathing meditation lying down, it's because we are dispersing energy. We're getting rid of, and in that case, we're best focusing on the exhalation and breathing down to the abdomen. Those are just helpful things that bring us into what we call the parasympathetic state or the relaxation response. The breath is a huge part of that. And by breathing to the belly and lengthening the exhalation, we are enhancing our ability to go into that parasympathetic state. Okay. So, but as I mentioned, it's really important because I was taught these techniques for anxiety. It doesn't work for everybody because for some people, asking them to watch their breath is going to make them more aggravated and more anxious. So that's something that is often underplayed in the yoga world, but it's important for you to know that. Okay.
Yes.
Yes. Is there another comment? Question?
I don't think so.
Okay. So we're going to switch gears a little bit. And as I said, we're going to finish on the ground to let you relax at the end. But what I want you to see is feel the difference and using the breath as a meditation to relax versus to direct energy. Okay. So typically, most people would do meditation seated as you are now. So the first thing I would say is your physical vessel has to be comfortable. And with, small little here and there, like, oh, my hip joint, whatever. But if you keep getting distracted by pain in your body, it's going to be very difficult to focus your awareness on your breath, right? That's a given. So any props that you need to sit comfortably, including a chair. And I will say that over and over again. If you can't, if you're trying to do a 10-minute meditation, you can't make it that long because your hips get sore, you can in a chair. So that's really important. Okay. Don't fight it. So we're going to take that same breathing technique we just did, but we're now going to do it in a seated position. So I'm going to leave you the option of using your hands. You might take one hand to your belly and one to your heart. Doesn't have to happen. But if your hands are good feelers for you, then use them. And see if you can start to recreate that same feeling of the 3-part breath. And same rules that if you feel like you're more anxious or in any way you feel trapped, your breath is getting more rigid, then drop your hands, return to your natural spontaneous breath, just as we could when we were lying down. I'm going to just give you a moment in your body to find this. And if when we were lying down, you found you were best breathing in, filling from belly to throat and emptying from throat to belly, that could change now that you're seated. Our position has so much to do with our breath. I like to think that yoga poses are really just, and this is a pose, meditation, seated meditation is a pose. They're containers for our breath, for pranayama. So you've just built a new container, and now I want you to explore that container. Is it easier, harder to breathe through your nose? Do you have more awareness in your throat, or do you suddenly feel the back of your neck? And are you focusing on the physical movement of the body? Anytime you want, go back to the simplicity of I breathe in, I breathe out. I vitalize, I relax. So I'm going to watch my time for a moment. And here's something a little bit silly that we typically wouldn't actually do in meditation, but I'm going to have you do this. Is in the time that I'm quiet and I'm just asking you to, maybe if you want to think of it as build the character, that personality of your breath, however you'd like. You know, you can do things like, I'm big on imagery, see your breath as a color or a temperature, even a sound going in and out of your body. Anything that helps you to connect more deeply with your breath, right? In a very intimate way. And there's no such thing as too strange or too fantastical, right? So I want you to do that, create that characterization of your breath. And what I want you to do is, it doesn't have to be an exact number, but really take note when your brain wanders off and when you bring it back. And remember, when you bring it back, it's a puppy on a leash and you give it a treat, right? I want you to kind of count for yourself in this time I'm about to be quiet. How many times does that happen? And just note how long it takes you to notice that your thoughts have strayed and you come back to your breath. Starting now. We're going to pause for just a moment. Please feel free to relax your hands and arms as well. I want you to each, if you want to share with me, or at least to yourself, roughly how often do you think your mind wandered off in that time frame?
4 times.
How many? Well, you kind of know for yourself. Like, was
4.
it 1 to 5 times, 10 to 20 times, right?
Maybe once for me.
Okay.
Working hard on this.
Yeah.
Awesome. And so think, what were we doing? All we were doing was breathing, right? I mean, and we talk about the importance of mindfulness and staying in the present moment. Did that work for you? And so now, and that was with a more controlled, or as I said, gentrified breath, right? I was asking you to breathe a certain way, because typically with pranayama and with breath focused meditations, for most people, it's going to be easier to stay present if we create this characterization of the breath. That's how I refer to it, right? And that's why when we bring in the image and we make the breath a little bit bigger, we're still asking the mind to do something. It's still a player in that characterization, right? It's like it's still the director. But now I want you to be in the seated position. And again, I want you to watch your breath. Notice how often your mind strays and you bring it back. But I want you to go back to the very beginning when we were lying down and all you were doing was watching your natural spontaneous breath. We were just doing a breath inquiry. So we're no longer going to manipulate the breath in any way. We're simply going to breathe the way our body naturally breathes us. And we're going to watch, starting now. I'm going to preface this next question by saying there is not a right or a wrong or a good or a bad answer. But if you go back to comparing breathing in a structured, more manipulated way to breathing naturally, and how many times now, this time, did your mind wander off? And was it harder or easier to bring it back? Just take a moment to compare those two, not in a judgmental way, but which one seemed more successful for you as far as staying more focused in this here and now of your body and your breath. Did one make you more anxious than the other? Did one feel like more work or less work? And I'm going to give you a moment to share if you want to share it all.
I think oh, go ahead.
Let's go. Heather, go ahead.
I can focus more when I'm doing the first one, the controlled breath.
Okay.
I also can breathe longer, and I don't know if this is relevant. When I'm sitting up, I can take longer breaths than when I'm laying down.
That's interesting. Okay. Good. Thank you did you already know that before tonight?
Yeah, I'm pretty good at sitting and meditating.
Yeah, that's what I know. You have a practice. Yeah. And you knew you're better off doing a controlled, gentrified.
Yeah, I can see,
Okay.
I see colour when I'm controlling it. When I'm
Okay.
not controlling it, I don't really see any colour.
Okay. Great. Thank you. I'm sorry. Who else? Somebody else started to say something. Anne, go ahead. I can barely see your hand because it's dark there.
Oh,
but please
I
go
know,
ahead.
I've
That's
got
okay.
my
Yeah.
lights funny tonight. It was easier to focus with a structured breath because I was focusing on the structure.
Okay.
instead, I guess. So that was easier.
Okay. Great. So that was, you stayed more centered.
Yes.
Okay. Awesome. Anyone else want to share
I feel
their-
like I accomplished more with the structured breath. You know,
Interesting.
like I'm actually doing something for myself. My body was responding
Okay.
to the structured breath rather than just sitting, breathing naturally. It's like, okay, mind does want to go somewhere else.
Great. Anybody else? Claudia or iPhone? Where'd iPhone go? Anything?
I did okay. I'm just really new at it.
Okay. Good. So what
So it's
was there a
all just
difference
kind
for you?
I'm still working on controlling that mind wander. What
Okay.
now?
Was there a difference for you between doing the more structured breath versus the
Yes,
free for all?
there was. I
And
think
what-
I think it was a little more relaxing just to go with my normal breath.
Okay, interesting. So that's see, and that's why I asked this question, because I want you to realize that there's not a right or wrong for everybody. And if there's one thing I've learned, I've been very blessed with lots of different meditation teachers and different ways that they teach. And some of them are very specific, and you breathe this way. And it's really hard for me to turn to somebody I know who's an expert in their field and say, that does not work for me. But you are the only one that knows what works for you. Okay. So for me, and I've been doing this for quite a while, I always have to start out with a very focused, structured breath. But if my brain, and I do usually 45-minute meditations every morning, if my brain is not as busy, I can let go into a natural breath. And it's just as successful. And it's actually, I can still, then we go into things like really working on where Heather was talking about colors and sending the breath into certain areas. I can talk about the chakras and Shakti and all of that stuff, right? Kundalini, you hear all these terms. That's where we start to go into that. We're not there yet, by the way, but that's when we start to go into that, because that's not a controlled breath, because pranayama, there's a physical layer of pranayama, and that's where we start. But then we go into the subtle layers of pranayama, or the energetic layers. And there are some more forceful structured breaths that we can do, but there's also letting go and just letting our breath breathe us. Okay. So if I'm in a good space of mind and body, I can let my breath be natural, and like lickety split, 45 minutes goes by like that. On days when I am waking up with a lot more to process, my brain's already busy, I have to stay in a structured breath in order to stay in my meditation. So again, there's not a right or wrong. Whether, and this is true whether you're doing 5 minutes or 25 minutes, but I encourage you to date it and try it. If this is something you're trying to bring in as a breath-centered meditation practice, typically you would start with something structured, but then see if that falls off. And if you fall off into a more natural, spontaneous breath, does that still work for you? If not, go back to the structured breath. And that is important that, one of the things, again, I see quite a bit is people are really pushed towards, I'll just say, for instance, alternate nostril, right? Nadi Shodha. That's a very common one that people learn right away. And it's not for everyone. For me, using the hands in that is extremely distracting. And I am less embodied. and less consciously aware of myself than if my hands are resting and my body's not moving. Moving my hand is a distraction for me. That's not true for everyone. So by the way, I do that one, but I do it without the use of my hand. I actually see my breath going in one nostril and out the other. So I simply do it with my mind's eye energetically. Okay. So these are some other things as we practice more with the breath. But I just wanted to give you all the experience of that. And then the other question to ask yourself, and if you want to respond, you can, and then we're going to go back down on the floor and finish, is did you feel a difference between the breath lying down and that idea of dispersing and releasing energy versus coming up to a seated position? And anyone there want to share or any comments on that?
I feel more energetic sitting up.
Yeah, I can, like I said, I can breathe longer.
Yep.
My breaths are longer when I'm sitting up than when I'm laying down.
Okay.
And I'm pretty good at visualization as well. So
Yep.
I like to visualize when I'm breathing.
Awesome. Good. Thank you both for sharing, Heather and Sarah. Anyone else? Any comparison of lying down, focusing on the exhalation? And I didn't even have you go into focusing on the inhalation. There's something we do with that too. And we take that pause at the top of the inhale. That's that vitalizing point. That's going a little further down the road. But for now, just doing it seated versus lying down. Anyone else feel a difference?
Lying down, I was felt more yawns coming through.
You're ready to fall asleep?
Well, just maybe more relaxed. I don't know.
Yeah.
I had a little nap today, so I can't.
Oh, good. Okay. Yeah. I mean, there's days where, if I go to do a meditation lying down at night, it's like, forget it. Within 5 minutes, it won't last any more than 5 minutes. If I do it seated, I would stay awake. Mm-hmm. Again, these are just things that we learn, body position and how we breathe have everything to do with the type of meditation that we're going to have. And I want it to be intentional for you is what I want.
Can I just say as well, Megan, that one thing that you've taught me in the years that I've been coming is I can now visualize the inside of my body.
Oh, yeah.
So when you say, start your breathing somewhere or breathing, I can breathe in with your lungs, or I can actually visualize that part of my body. And I think that's something that I couldn't do before I started coming to you. So that's really good for me, especially when I'm in bed at night and I can't sleep. And I do that to relax myself. Mm-hmm. So that's one good thing that you've really taught me. So thank you.
Awesome. No, thank you for sharing that. And I know you're very dedicated. And my reminder there, thank you, Heather, is that the breath is, we're talking about doing a seated formal meditation here or lying down. But here's the reality check of that the breath is always with us and it's free, right? Mm-hmm. So what we're learning right now is completely applicable no matter where you are or what you're doing. Okay, so if we're feeling anxious at a grocery line because somebody's arguing or something, belly breath, focus on your exhalation, or you're in the dentist chair. I just had to go to the dentist, right? Belly breath, focus on your exhalation. I mean, this is real life skills too, right? And then the other side of it is that, if you're sleepy, instead of grabbing the coffee, whatever in the afternoon, we've learned to vitalize with our breath. And that's where these life skills are so important. But before we go back down, I'm going to preface this by saying the reason why we do this in meditation is because there aren't all these external distractions, and it's much easier to train ourselves, right? It's easier to train ourselves when we don't have external distractions. So then in these real world situations, we can take these tools, they're familiar to us and our bodies and our brains, and we can use them. So the joke that I say is that, you know, if you're freezing cold and sogging wet, you're not going to go out in a rainstorm, right? Well, meditation's a little bit like that, in that if you're freezing cold and sogging wet is the idea that if you're in the middle of an argument with a spouse or a friend and you start trying to use your breath, that's going out in the rainstorm. It's not going to happen. Okay. So we learn, we learn when it's a bright sunny day, or when we have an environment that is complementary to us being present and focused in our own body. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So yes, so practice when you're relaxed and open to it, so that you, like exercising, you know, you don't sprint just out the front door if you haven't warmed up.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
The same thing. That's a great analogy. Yes. So we have to fine tune these skills in this quiet practice of meditation, because it's really hard to do in the real world. It's hard to, you know, be angry at somebody and go, I'm going to feel my belly. I'm going to feel my belly and I'm going to calm myself down, which we can do, but we have to, our body has to be familiar with that. And that took a long time for me to learn. Again, I didn't say this in the beginning, but I came into breath-centered meditation because I was taught it in a class in college, which was called Smart Stress Management and Relaxation Techniques, because I was having panic attacks. So I thought that, oh, they're going to teach me these great breathing skills, and then when I start to have the panic attack, I'm going to do them. But it didn't work that way. There was already fuel in the fire. It was too late. So once I learned to do this when I wasn't in the middle of a panic attack, then I could take those skills and use them. So
They become part of your autonomic system then, or they become
you know what,
built in?
to me, it's the same thing. It's kinesthetic awareness, whatever you want to call it. You know, I bet each one of you has driven probably 3 blocks to a mile, and in getting to your destination, didn't even realize you were driving. Raise your hand if you've ever done that. Yeah, right? Okay. Claudia, I know your hand's up. I can't see it.
Yeah. Very scary.
Uh-huh.
It's no different. It's actually, for me, it's that now. I don't even think about it. I'm not even always consciously aware that I'm doing it, but my hands will actually go to my belly if I'm feeling anxious and start to belly breathe. It's that amazing, you know? Or and by the way, we naturally do when we feel tired, what do? We go, oh, right? We take a big breath in. There's all these things that are set very organically in our nervous system that we do all the time. We sigh. Sighing is a way to purge, right? A way to release. So that's the other thing I'll encourage you to do if you're going to start to play with these breath-centered meditations, is watch what you naturally do throughout the day with your breath. Watch when you sigh. Watch when you're breathing in deeper. You start to get, you know, if your exhalation gets longer, because your body responds to your emotions. As we say in these practices, there is a breathing pattern for every emotion your body feels. And you're going to start to learn those. How do I breathe when I'm this, right? So really, really important, but we don't want to be this when we're learning these techniques. We want this to be in a space of loving kindness and acceptance. All right, let's finish up by relaxing so you guys can all go to bed, put your pajamas on and be ready to relax. So come back into your position, resting. Thank you. Get comfy, in other words. And by the way, I hope you weren't hearing Bodhi snore back there. He's been snoring a little bit. Speaking of sleeping. All right, I want you to get comfortable. And this is not a test. This is just a small reminder that now we're going to go back to breathing to relax. But before you do that, do a couple of those full, deep diaphragmatic breaths. You might even stall for a moment and notice the top of the inhale. Notice that point between the inhale and the exhale, just as you notice the point between the exhale and the inhale. So do a little bit more of a gentrified, manipulated breath. So we're going to just do a reverse of what we did on the way in. But you're lying down, and in those breaths, you can feel your connective tissues and your muscles, and everything is stretching in your torso as you're breathing in. It's expanding physically. You can even feel your skin stretch. And as you breathe out, it's coming back in and it's gently compressing. Feel the relationship of your back body on the ground again. Notice the ratio of your breath. How long is your inhale? How long is your exhale? And then slide your hands down to your abdomen or bring your awareness into your abdomen. You don't have to use your hands. And see if you can go back to that abdominal breath. Just letting the chest and lungs, we don't hold them back. If they respond to the belly breath, please let them move. But focus your awareness in your breath in the abdomen again. And begin to make the exhalation a little bit longer and slower and sweeter than the inhalation. Feel free to add any sort of mantra or affirmation. I breathe in love. I breathe out fear. Whatever terms you need to grow in your body and whatever you want to purge out of your body. Or the simplicity of saying, I breathe in and I notice, and I breathe out and I relax. You create it. You're personifying your breath, or your breath is really personifying you. And then if your hands are in your abdomen, just take them to your sides. Wherever your body is most comfortable physically, letting the muscles rest onto the bones, feeling the weight of the body, whether it's light or heavy, feel it fully supported by the earth underneath you. And just allow the breath to breathe you. Go back to just watching your natural, spontaneous breath. Where does it originate? Where does it move? Is there a color or a temperature, a sound associated with your breath now? And if there's any particular physical spaces in your body that could benefit from this pranic energy, visualize that space in your mind. Breathe in and notice that space. Fill that space. As you breathe out, image any tension or tightness or discomfort leaving the body with the breath. Anywhere in your body. Just like we can breathe out an emotion or a thought, we can breathe out physical tension or discomfort from the body. Or anything at all that needs healing in your body, whether it be in the musculoskeletal system, your organs, tissues. even emotions. Prana is the vitalizing life force. And we connect to it on the physical level in the form of the breath. You see your whole body like a sponge. And it's not just your lungs that fill, but any part of your body, all parts of your body can benefit from this pranic energy. Creating space and freedom in your body, comfort, relaxed awareness. Begin to feel your breath on the edges of your nose again, maybe your lips. Feel the temperature of the breath on your upper lip. And invite your breath to be just a little bit deeper. See how that feels. And without opening your eyes, just think of the room around you where you are, the position of your body in that room, floor underneath you, the walls, the ceiling. Coming back into the room, fully embodied in your breath. And if you want to shut me off and go straight to bed, you can. If you'd rather take a stretch or hug your knees in, roll to your side and pause and come back up, I will be here and available to take any questions or please share any comments.